In the summer of 1988, I was an 8-year-old boy spending the season in Montana with my father. School was out, and my dad had custody during the summer months, which meant my days were filled with baseball, swimming lessons, camping, and fishing. My father, the roadmaster for Burlington Northern Railroad, was always on call, but he tried to spend as much time with me as he could. This particular summer, things were different. My dad had separated from his wife, April, and their constant arguments had cast a shadow over our days. I couldn't help but take my father's side in the split, just as April's daughter, Jill, sided with her mother. We were technically step-siblings, but our bond had grown strained due to the tension in our homes. One night, while my dad had to work at a train derailment, April decided to go out to the bars with her girlfriend. She left us in the care of her girlfriend's 18-year-old brother, a babysitter who seemed to favor Jill and took every opportunity to tease me about my father. I felt alone and vulnerable. As the evening wore on, the babysitter and Jill watched horror movies on TV. One of them was called Dolls, a chilling tale of people who met gruesome ends, only to have their souls trapped in the dolls they left behind. The movie terrified me, and the babysitter and Jill wasted no time mocking my fear. Bedtime arrived around 10 p.m., but instead of allowing me to sleep in my own room, the babysitter made me sleep in Jill's room, which was filled with dolls. They were everywhere, hanging from the shelves above the bed. Their lifeless eyes seemed to follow my every move. I was petrified, but the babysitter paid no attention to my fear. He permitted Jill, who was younger than me, to stay up with him in the living room to watch more horror movies. As I lay in that room, surrounded by dolls, my heart pounded and my imagination ran wild. The babysitter's friends came over, and they all continued their taunts, laughing at my expense. The night felt like an eternity, and eventually exhaustion overcame me, forcing me into a fitful sleep. The noise from April and her girlfriend's return from the bars roused me from my uneasy slumber. Their drunken laughter and loud chatter filtered into the room, and I overheard them discussing the teasing I had endured. I heard April say something that stung. She seemed to take pleasure in my torment. The following day, my dad arrived to pick me up. As the summer came to an end, my father and April's marriage did too. Their separation was inevitable, and our family had irrevocably changed. For years, the memory of that night haunted me. The trauma I endured at the hands of a heartless babysitter and the ominous presence of those dolls stayed with me, festering in my subconscious. Over time, I grew older, and my fear of dolls gradually receded. I'm in my 40s now. I can look back and acknowledge that it was a horrible experience, but I've moved past it. However, the scars from that night ran deep, affecting my trust in others and my ability to confront my fears. The babysitter's actions, fueled by April's negativity, left a lasting impact on my childhood. I learned that even in the most trying of circumstances, the kindness and understanding of adults could make all the difference for a child. My father was always there for me, even if he couldn't be present all the time. And it was his unwavering support that helped me eventually overcome the demons of that terrifying summer in 1988. My name is Beth. I was just a 9-year-old girl when I had the most terrifying experience of my life. It began one evening when my parents had to attend a business party, leaving me in the care of a babysitter. The babysitter was around 17 years old, and she seemed nice enough when I was introduced to her. My parents had promised to be back around 2 a.m, and the babysitter, whose name I can't even remember, seemed initially friendly. She cooked up some mac and cheese for me before bedtime, and around 10 o'clock, she put me to sleep. As I lay in my room, I could hear the faint giggles and laughter coming from the downstairs living room. It was evident that the babysitter had company, but she didn't seem to care about me. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to sneak down the stairs to see what was going on. To my astonishment, I found the babysitter and her friends gathered around a peculiar board on the coffee table. I didn't understand what it was then, but as I grew older, I realized it was a Ouija board. I eventually went back up to my room, but when I returned, I could feel the atmosphere of my room had changed. I didn't know why, but I felt scared. I leaped into bed, pulling the covers over my head. It was then that I heard a loud crash as the cross hanging on my bedroom wall fell to the ground. Heavy footsteps echoed around the room, but I couldn't see anyone. I was paralyzed with terror. In my fear-stricken state, I screamed for the babysitter, begging her to come to my rescue. She eventually entered my room and told me not to worry about their game downstairs and assured me that everything was fine. I reluctantly crawled back into bed. As she left, I heard the click of the bedroom door being locked from the outside. Panic surged through me, and I pounded on the door, pleading to be let out. But my cries fell on deaf ears. I was trapped in my room, helpless and terrified. Under the dim light filtering through my covers, I began to see a shadowy figure materialize at the foot of my bed. It was an indescribable, chilling presence that sent shivers down my spine. I remained hidden beneath the covers, unable to move or scream. Time crawled by, and I don't know when, but I eventually drifted off to sleep. The next morning when I awoke, I recounted the night's events to my parents, who were furious with the babysitter for inviting friends over, for not paying attention to me, and for locking me in my room. They never hired her again. Years have passed, and I can't explain what I saw and heard that night in my room. The sight of the shadowy figure at the foot of my bed has never left my mind. I cannot explain what it was, and I pray that I never have to come in contact with it again.